Good. L'chaim, l'chaim, baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihiyeh b'dvarei.
Amen.
Amen. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Thank you so much for joining. Special thank you to Rabbi Guy for sponsoring the mazonos and crisps, chips. It's much appreciated. Thank you. All right, so we take a look at our teaching for this week. This is the Kedushas Levi on Parshas Bo. Interestingly enough, I actually made reference to this morning in the Likutei Moharan shiur and didn't even realize, for some reason, it didn't connect it to the Parsha, like it's this week's Parsha. We were learning this morning about tefillin. And Rabbi Nachman tells us about the importance of experiencing tefillin, more than just sort of putting them on, but to really enter into the consciousness of tefillin, what Rabbi Nachman calls dveikus, right? That relationship with Hashem that we're supposed to feel when we put on the tefillin, which are highly relational, right? They're literally, it's the concept of binding, tying Hashem to ourselves, tying ourselves to Hashem, our mind and our heart. So the pasuk says here in Shemai, so we're going to get into tefillin in a minute, in this week's Parsha, Shemai's Parak Yud Beis Pasuk of Zai, Va'amartem Zevach Pesach Hu L'Hashem. Klal Yisrael are commanded to bring the carbon Pesach, and they do that for the first time prior to leaving Mitzrayim. So the Kedushas Levi, this is a very well-known piece, sort of a straightforward piece, but a very beautiful piece to read inside. And the tzaddik says like this: V'hine yesh lahavin, we need to understand, Sha'anu karan es yantiv ha'mechuna b'Torah b'shem Chag HaMatzos, anu karan osay Pesach. This yantiv, this holiday that's referred to throughout the Torah as Chag HaMatzos, right, the festival of the matzahs, we colloquially, societally refer to it as Pesach. So he wants to know why. Ve'echan Rama zeh b'Torah likra yantiv zeh b'shem Pesach. Like it doesn't call it Pesach even once, right? Where did we get this idea that for all of our generations we should refer to this holiday as Pesach? Pesach, Shabbos, and Sukkot, the Shalosh Regalim. It should be Chag HaMatzos in the same way that the Torah calls it Chag HaMatzos. V'alei b'chol Torah nikra yantiv zeh b'shem Chag HaMatzos, right? The whole Torah calls it Chag HaMatzos. Where do you come off calling it Pesach? So says the Kedushas Levi, an extraordinarily beautiful and powerful thing, and a teaching that's very apropos. You know, sometimes you see teachings from tzaddikim that fit the personality of the tzaddik. It isn't just, you know, this is a Berditchover Torah. This is, you know, because the Berditchover was the defense attorney of Klal Yisrael, right? He was the advocate of the Jewish people. He was constantly seeing our goodness, our sweetness. The Berditchover famously, like we mentioned in the past, would engineer situations so that he would have a schus to be able to bring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? He would on purpose try to go ahead and elicit a zechus. One famous story that comes to mind, actually, it's a Pesach story, is that on Erev Pesach, after Bir Chametz, the Berditchover, it's a very famous story, called in his gabbai, his attendant, and he told him, please go and find for me, I believe it was Turkish cigars. In the place where he was living in Berditchev in Ukraine, at that time Russia, White Russia, you were not allowed to have Turkish cigars. It was totally illegal. And there was a huge crackdown in it. People were smuggling them in. It was a terrible, terrible capital crime to have these Turkish cigars. And it was such an odd thing. It was like, what's the Rebbe? It's Erev Pesach. What's the Rebbe, like, what's he thinking about? This is what he wants. It was strange. Like, he has nothing better to do, and the Gabbai has nothing better to do, and the people have nothing better to do than be busy with this. But the Rebbe says, so this is what he does. So he goes ahead and he runs around town, and even though it's absolutely illegal and nobody's allowed to have it under threat of very intense punishment, they go ahead and he comes back to the Rebbe and he's able to bring the tzaddik, you know, he collected a bunch of Turkish cigars. Not allowed, contraband, nobody's allowed to have them, but he was able to bring cigars to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe smiles and he's very happy about it. And then the tzaddik tells him, okay, now listen, I know it's a strange request, but I want you to go and find me a piece of chametz. Find me a piece of chametz from a Jewish home. Crazy thing. It's after Zman Bir chametz. The Rebbe wants chametz. We're not allowed to own chametz. What's he talking about? But the Rebbe said. So he goes around from house to house trying to find a piece of chametz for the Berditchover Rav, an Erev Pesach. And after hours of walking around the whole entire village, he comes back to the Rebbe right before Mincha, and he says, I'm so sorry to tell you, there's no chametz to be found in the whole city of Berditchover. There's no chametz. And the Berditchover looks up to Shemayim, and he says, the Russian government rules that are enforceable, that there are police officers on the street that don't know any limits to their cruelty and will beat any person that they find who has a Turkish cigar. You can procure cigars. But a little drop of chametz, there's no Sanhedrin, there's no police force, there's nothing. But Hashem, you said that we're not supposed to have chametz on Pesach. We cannot find a speck of chametz. Look how holy your people are. So this was the Berditchover, right? He would sort of engineer a circumstance in order to create the zechus to then be able to bring it before HaKadosh Baruch Hu as our defense attorney. That was the Berditchover. So this is a Berditchover Torah, right? This is a Torah it's loy na'ev loy ya'eh, right? It's fitting for him. And he says like this, the pasuk says in Shir Hashirim, Ani l'doidi. Yeah, please take your bowl of, I didn't say to spill it, I said to take it. Take your bowl of crisps, take your bottle of take your bottle of schnapps and your bowl of crisps and find yourself a seat.
I'm craving spots of addition.
There's plenty of everything. Whatever you want, we have. You want l'chaims, we have. You want crisps, we have.
I need addition.
L'chaim.
Thank you. Sorry.
He emptied me. I was holding myself back, and now I feel like I should.
Says the Heilige Berditchover. As long as your phone understands.
As
long as your phone understands.
Exactly.
It's a little insider joke. You guys have to be there for Likutim Ram. Okay. V'eniksiv, the pasuk says in Shir Hashirim, Ani l'doidi v'doidi li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. What does this mean? What does this mean? Right? That there's some kind of mirroring in the relationship that Hashem has with us and the relationship that we have conversely with Hashem. What is the mirroring? Says the Berditchover, it means what it says. Ani l'doidi means hainu sha'anu misaprim shivcha shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We spend all of our time, which we really do, talking about the godless and the greatness of Hashem. That's ani l'doidi. I'm obsessed with Hashem. I can't stop talking about Hashem and His greatness and His grandeur and His wisdom and His compassion, etc. And you know what v'doidi li means? Is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu misaper shavach shel Yisrael. In turn, HaKadosh Baruch Hu spends all of His time. He can't stop talking about us. He can't stop talking about us. Kiviyachol. To the Pamalya Shal Mala, whoever Hashem can speak to, Kiviyachol. He's praising us all the time. V'cheinu, says the Berditchover, this is the symbol, and again I mentioned this morning. V'cheinu sh'anu manichim tefillin. We wear tefillin. Uksiv bahem shavach shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The whole tefillin, the Parshias are describing the awesome miracles that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did to take us out, right? Who ever heard of such a thing, that Hashem would take out goy mikarav goy? It's a great shavach and a hoidah. We're praising Hashem in our tefillin. And the Gemara in Brachas tells us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu maniach tefillin. Hashem also kiviyachol wears tefillin. What does it say in Hashem's tefillin? Tefillin demara al mamaksiv buhu shavach Yisrael. In Hashem's tefillin, Hashem is praising Klal Yisrael because it says mi ka'amcha Yisrael. So our tefillin is the aspect of ani l'daidi, right? My job is that I'm walking around. I'm so proud to be with Hashem, and I'm walking around praising Hashem. Hashem's tefillin is v'daidi. He kaviyachol walks around town. Can't stop speaking about us, like a chassid and kala, can't stop talking about each other. Ani l'daidi v'daidi li. Ubezei yuvam, with this we could understand mashakasa b'tana d'Elio, what's brought in the Tana d'Elio, where he says the mitzvah l'saper shivchan shel Yisrael. It's a tremendous mitzvah. Great to see you guys. Great to see you. It's a great mitzvah l'saper shivchan shel Yisrael. For us to share the praise of Klal Yisrael, just like the Berditchover did, like we just mentioned. V'yesh laHashem yisbarach nachas ruach mizeh shemesaper b'shivchon shel Yisrael. And Hashem has tremendous nachas from this that we go ahead and praise Klal Yisrael. So says the Berditchover, v'nira hatam. Listen to this. Mishum da aser la'asiach das mitfillin. We know that it is forbidden when a person is wearing tefillin to be mesiach das. Right? For their mind to wander. We have to be conscious of the tefillin that we're wearing. And again, this is a halachic imperative, but all the halachic imperatives are only there because of the relationship. Halacha exists to protect the framework for a romance. And so the halachic imperative of have to always keep in mind, and that's why a person should touch their tefillin, right? And mashbish b'tefillin. Why? Not because that's what the halacha says. It's much deeper. The halacha says that because tefillin is about this intense bonding that we have with Hashem, where we're literally tying our obsession with God on our head and on our arm, which is essentially on our mind and on our heart. So the halachic imperative says it would be counterproductive for this experience, this spiritual, mystical experience, if a person's going to get distracted, because that meaning distraction is exactly the opposite of the energy of tefillin. Tefillin is not distraction. Tefillin is the most focused thing in the world. Imagine a person, right, who like a horse, not a person, a horse, right, wears blinders, right? Or a person ties the horse and ties it to a particular place, cannot move his head one way or another way. Super focused. That's what tefillin are supposed to be. That's what tefillin are, right? In their essence, on the yad, on the mayach, on the heart, on the mind. Tefillin shal yad, tefillin shal rosh. Ukshartem. It's an inyan of binding. So says the halacha, how are you going to go ahead and bind yourself to Hashem and then be mesiach das from the tefillin? How could that be? The whole tefillin is the hepech of mesiach das, the opposite of distraction. Tefillin is the opposite of distraction.
Sorry to be distracting, but
You already accomplished
sorry, I
it.
missed that.
This is not a
Because I might as
distraction.
well
This
go
is.
with it. I was going to start talking to you. But I've once shared this maybe like a year or two ago. A certain Rav in our community here told me that he went to Rav Yitzchak Berkowitz in Yerushalayim, and when his son was becoming bar mitzvah, they went, to Eretz Yisrael, and he went to a Berkowitz for a bracha for the bar mitzvah. And literally 2 years ago this happened, and the Berkowitz said, he says, do you have to fill in yet? So yeah, if you put them on already. He says, yeah, I've done it for the first time now. And he says, no, he says, you know what they are, right? And the kid was like, yeah, he's like, no, do you know what they are? He's like, yeah, and he saw and the kid could rattle off exactly what was going on. He obviously learned it. It's these parashas and this is for the Berkowitz. Like, it's not what I was. I said, do you know what they are? He says, you are strapping the creator of the universe on you. So he told a 13-year-old boy.
Amazing. Yeah, beautiful. Dvekas. Can't be mesiach das. Dvekas, real dvekas. Obsession.
Safsa.
Infatuation. Person believes in God. Well, believes in God. What do you mean? Person believes in their girlfriend. Person believes in their wife. What are you talking about? Some believe. Are you? 1 second. Are you obsessed? Are you obsessed? It's not a matter of believing it. Believing it because we don't know what else to say because God is God, so we're supposed to believe in God. Step one, right? That's the foundation. What is it though? It's a relationship, but not just a general relationship. A tefillin relationship. Asur to be mesiach das. Ani l'doidi. My whole being can't stop praising Hashem. Can't stop. That's what tefillin are. Yeah.
Basically, I was on my phone with one of my friends. He was in Hasmonean back in the day, and he's telling me, I know you're not so observant in your own life, but I really appreciate it that you live in God. I really I see your obsessed with WhatsApp status, and I see you're obsessed with Reb Nachman's teachings, and I see this is real living God. He's telling me, when I see someone on the street and you say that I believe in God, we go to United Synagogue, I believe in God. This is not believing in God. It's for me, There's no difference between someone who doesn't believe in that kind of belief. You have to really yearn to God and really mamish yearn to Hashem 24/7.
That's right, Pinchas. That's right. And what do we know? Some people in the more orthodox circles
Yeah.
might be less. Some people in the United Synagogue might be more. And some people of all kinds are individuals. You can't judge. What do we know? But it's true, Pinchas. You're right. And the goal, I think, is to be observant and also yearning.
Yeah. I'm not there yet.
The goal is to have both. That's the ultimate. Right? That's the ultimate.
I've got the yearning.
That's the ultimate. Okay. All of us are on our journey. Right? That's the ultimate goal. But that's what tefillin are supposed to be. So you can't be Mesiach Das from tefillin. Says the Berditchover Rav Zy inside, Mishum da asur la'asiyat das mit tefillin, u'mitzvah kol adam lasik tamid b'tefillin. Says the Berditchover, it's more than that, right? I was explaining the Isser to be Mesiach Das from the actual wearing of tefillin per se. But here the Berditchover says, now that we've used tefillin as a symbol for this obsession, where ani l'daidi means I'm walking around talking about God the whole day, and Hashem is walking around kaviyachol talking about me the whole day, can't be Mesiach Das from those tefillin. Says the Berditchover, you know what I mean? Dahainu oy l'saper hashevach shel Yisrael, either be busy with the tefillin of Hashem, dahainu tefillin demar alma sheksibem shevach shel Yisrael, and be busy talking about how great Yidden are. Kedamrina b'gemar tefillin demar alma maksibuhu mikam shel Yisrael. Oy l'saper b'shavach shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or be busy with our tefillin, which is tefillin shel Yisrael shekatsa b'hem shevach Hashem yisbarach dahainu shema kadesh v'yikeviyacha. Right, the parshas that describe HaKadosh Baruch Hu's greatness and Hashem taking care of His nation. That's what the Berditchover understands. Chazal are telling us, don't be Mesiach Das from tefillin. Doesn't simply mean, although it is true, and it's very deep what we said before, that when a person's actually wearing tefillin, their mind shouldn't wander and become distracted. That is true. I have to make that a little bit lower. It's very distracting. Talking about distractions. So...
He's not like partying upstairs right now.
Not yet. It means more broadly. Person should be occupied with these two pairs of tefillin. Person should watch how they speak. What am I speaking about? Either I'm speaking good things about Klal Yisrael, or I'm speaking good things about Hashem. Not to be Mesiach Das from tefillin. So we're constantly speaking about the praise of Hashem. And Hashem is constantly telling our praise. So says the Berditchover, go back to the original question, right? We call it Pesach, and the Torah calls it Chag HaMatzos. Says the Berditchover, this is why. This that the Torah refers to Pesach as Chag HaMatzos is, in a sense, praising the Jewish nation. Barashi, take a look at Rashi al Pasuk ve'afos habatzek ugais. Matzos, Klal Yisrael's dough that they carried out, baked into matzos v'gam tzeda, they hadn't even prepared anything. Barashi magid shivchan shel Yisrael. This is to tell the incredible praise of Klal Yisrael, shemafurish beKabbalah, because it's brought down in Navi Zacharti lachesin urayich avas kludasech lechtech achar b'midbar ba'eretz loizarua. That the people were full of so much bitachon, so much trust in Hashem. Imagine this. Not they're taking a holiday for a week. They are leaving and never coming back. They have no idea where they're going. And they took no provisions with them. They just left. Think of that. Think of that. Think about leaving your house for 2 days without packing, things. Think about taking a train ride to Manchester without packing lunch and snacks. First, people eat more on train rides and plane rides than they do, in a week. They eat in one day. People pack up things like, I do the same thing. It's like it's an absurdity, So I have to make sure I have mamish a sandwich for lunch and a sandwich for dinner.
It's a Jewish PTSD from PTSD.
Maybe it goes back these years.
Same with Jews.
It's only Jews, you're saying. It's a strange thing.
It's embarrassing on the planes when Jews whip out their food.
A whole separate bag full of food.
We just got on the plane. Like, what are you on about?
So actually, I just had this thing. We were coming back from Eretz Yisrael, and I got on the plane before the kids were with my wife. My wife was folding up the buggy or something. The kids were with her, and I came onto the plane. I was holding the food bag, and it was see-through, and everybody's staring at me. I'm walking on with this whole bag of tons of food, sandwiches and things. So this is a weird thing that we do, but they left for good and they didn't even take one sandwich. They took the dough of what could have been the bread of a sandwich with no insides. They didn't take anything. Rashi tells us that's an incredible praise, an incredible bitachon. Zacharti la chesed urayich, avas kluloisayich, lechtech achar b'midbar be'eretz lo zarua. And Hashem says, wow, I remember the love of our youth. You followed me into the desert, into an unsown land, without taking anything with you. So when Imtzad emerges, Nikra Chag HaMatzos al Shem Shavach Yisrael Sha'afuas Habatzik Ugas Matzos. That's why Hashem wants to call it Chag HaMatzos, because Hashem is busy praising us. So when He makes reference to the holiday, what does He want to call it? Chag HaMatzos, because that will evoke and express His admiration and love and appreciation for us and what we did for Him. So Torah Nikra Yantiv Zeh B'Shem Chag HaMatzos Kiviyachol. It's called Chag HaMatzos. Kiviyachol Hashem Yisbarach Mesaper Shebach Shel Yisrael. Hashem is singing the praise of the Jewish nation. Va'anu Kairin Hayantiv B'Shem Pesach. And of course, we're going to call it Pesach because of Chag HaMatzos is Hashem telling our praise in the aspect of a Doidi Li. We call it Pesach because Ani L'Doidi. Hashem Shevach Hashem Yisbarach. Because we're busy praising Hashem. V'yamartem zevach Pesach hu Hashem. Hashem paschu HaKadosh Baruch Hu jumped over our homes by Makas B'chayres. Shu Shevach Hashem Yisbarach Derech HaPasuk Ani L'Doidi V'Doidi Li. We have this mirror image, this relationship with Hashem where we are busy speaking about Him, and He kiviyachol Eshma Ma'adaber Kel Yidaber Shalom El Amah. The Pasuk Tehillim says Hashem is saying good things about us. Hashem is telling of His love for us, and that's this relationship Ani L'Doidi V'Doidi Li. So we're calling it Pesach because we can't stop talking about how great Hashem is. And Hashem is calling it Chag HaMatzos. We're wearing tefillin that says the praise of Hashem. Hashem is wearing tefillin, so to speak, that sings our praise. And the Berditchover says, don't be mesiach das from tefillin. Be busy doing one of these two things always. Speaking about the greatness of Hashem, speaking about the greatness of Klal Yisrael. Let's take a look at the next teaching, which is very connected. The Pasuk says, Moshe Rabbeinu told Klal Yisrael, Hayoim atem yotzim b'chodesh ha'aviv. Today you are leaving Egypt in the spring. Nira says the tzaddik. He wants to suggest Hashem chose Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael are HaKadosh Baruch Hu's nation charged with a special responsibility to be a light unto all the nations, like we so often describe. Hashem chose us. In Lubavitch, they have this very interesting theology where it's rooted already, I believe, in the Rebbe Rashab, and it comes all the way down the Lubavitch Rebbe. The Rebbe, right, would speak about this quite often, it appears. That the Bechira of Hashem in Am Yisrael, this that Hashem chose to build a covenant with one particular nation was not in the neshamas of Klal Yisrael, it was in the guf of Klal Yisrael. It was in the guf. What does it mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu separated the Jewish people? It means in their guf. And if I'm not mistaken, not remembering right now 100% clearly, I'm thinking of two different explanations for this right now, but I think one of them is accurate at least. I think this is the explanation, is that on the level of neshama, there's no inyan of selecting because they're so different. So you can't say that Hashem chose, because already, at least in Tanya world, right, Klal Yisrael's neshamas come from a completely different place. But on the level of body, where our body is the same as the body of a non-Jew, so says the Rebbe Rashab, that's the selection. Meaning to select something from something else means, otherwise, what's the big deal? So a person chooses something more optimal from something less optimal. It's not called choosing, it's called obviously, right? It's not the same. But the bodies are the same. He says the Iker Bechira of Hashem is in the Guf. I believe that's unique to Lubavitch, this idea. And it has many theological implications from the standpoint of dir b'tachtonim, and dafka, the physical is reflective somehow of a much higher spiritual energy than even the soul.
You'd start.
Hmm?
I'll see Lagani. Shir. Choisi Kala.
So not just the neshamas have a different energy, the bodies are different. I mean, think of it, right? We are given a bris. The bris is on the body, right? Shechasamta bivsarenu. It's on the basar that HaKadosh Baruch Hu singles out Klal Yisrael. Literally on the guf. The neshama is a different thing. Yisrael oile b'machshavat, ala b'machshavat tchila. That's already something else. But the bodies. Says the Berditchover, okay, so then we're good. Then we're good. In Hashem's eyes, we're good. Because He chose us. What does He chose us? Doesn't mean that we should put our feet up and feel superior. It's not what it means. On the contrary. It means that He believes that we have a mission. He believes that we can do it. That's what it means. Right? Because chosenness doesn't mean that we're better. On the contrary, it can mean that we're far worse off, as has been our lot, as the Nevi'im, told us and Hashem told us. So we get treated much worse. It's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a special job for us that when we're not doing it, it's very severe. So what does it mean that Hashem chose us? It means that He believes in us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here anymore. We wouldn't be here anymore. Christians have this theology, the Catholic Church, that God preserved the Jewish people as a witness people. Right? That we should be protected, we shouldn't be killed, and we should suffer, so that everyone should see this is what happens when you reject. Right? That's their concept. So that worked out for most of the time in Europe, when the Christians were sort of in control and they were able to keep us in that status. I'm not so sure how that theology pans out when Jews are super powerful and returning to Israel, and so it's but we know why we're here.
Just have a theory about Jews all going to Israel and then
we know why we're here, right? We know why we're here. We have a job to do. We have a mission. So says the Berditchover, okay, so then Lefikach ein shum echad rashai lo yamar al Yisrael shum davara. Then never say anything bad about another Jew. There's a strong lashon. No Jew is permitted to say anything bad. Because what? You know better than God? I don't think he means to criticize. I mean to say something definitively. This person is hopeless, right? Yeah, this person is has no use, no good. Ein shum echad rashai lo yamar al Yisrael shum davara, rak lelamed zchus al Yisrael. And this was the Berditchover's whole thing, right? This is what he stood for. This was his whole personality. This was his whole energy. He's unique among all of the tzaddikim who lived, arguably from the beginning of time to the end of time. There was never another tzaddik who was called the Sanigor and Shel Yisrael, the defense attorney of the Jewish people. Only the Berditchover Rav, he had this unique thing. This was his thing. So this is such a beautiful, both of these pieces in our parsha are they're so Berditchev, right? They're so classic. Mordechai, and we should be like it says by Mordechai, Doresh Toiv La'amai. He sought good for his people. In other words, he found the good in them. He found the good in himself. That's where it starts. Because Al Shum Echad Yisrael doesn't just mean anybody outside of us. We spoke this morning. It means ourselves. We're not permitted to say anything bad about ourselves. Shum Echad Yisrael. Because God chose you. So what you're disagreeing with, you know better than Hashem believes in you. Hashem believes in you. Every breath you take, Hashem believes in you. So now you're going to think, no, there's no hope. What kind of kfir is that? I mean, there's no hope. God thinks there's hope because you just took another breath. So what are you saying something definitive about yourself? God shows you. You have a job to do, a mission. Now, Mordechai is communion Rav Chesed. Kiyadua from the Arizal. Mordechai is the gematria of Rav Chesed. He was overflowing with love. Dainu HaKadosh Baruch Hu noisin Rav Chesed liYisrael. And Mordechai was always waking up this concept of this, that Hashem is going to give Klal Yisrael everything good. A person who washes their hands in the morning for cleanliness before bread needs to say al netilas yadayim because of a Beis Yosef, and it's brought in the Beis Yosef dainu lagbia yadav, that a person should raise their hand. Shenetilahu lashon hagba. Netila could mean to take, it could mean to raise. And that's how it is, right? It's brought in halacha. A person should raise their hands, the right hand a little bit higher than the left hand, and the water should drip down. There's a halachic reason for this. We don't want the water to go up and then become impure and then roll down. So we want to let the water drip down as opposed to washing and then putting our hands downward, right? And then the water that rolls past the wrist can become impurified and then roll back and be mitam of the hands. That's on a practical level. So you want to raise and let the water just roll down, and that's it. But Kabbalistically, spiritually, there are tremendous, tremendous secrets. So the Berditchover explains, V'aklalu kach, the rule is as following. A person is split into 3 different chalakim. There are 3 parts of a person. Harosh, imhei varim shel harosh. There's the head with the different parts of the head, right? All the faculties, the capacities, the brain, different parts of the brain, senses, that's the head. Va'yadayim and maguf, and then there's the hands and the body, and then there's the raglayim, and then there's the legs. V'inya evri harosh, the limbs of the head, dainu einayim v'aznayim, the eyes, the ears, loy nivru, they were, listen to these words, the reason why I have eyes in my head and ears on my head is rak lahabet el Hashem v'lishma divrei musar v'divrei Torah. I have eyes to look for spirituality. That's why I have eyes. To look at a physical world and to hopefully, through an expanded state of emunah consciousness, to look beyond the surface and to see spirituality. I have ears to listen to Divrei Torah. V'hapeh lo nivra, famous words, the mouth was not created, rak, meaning the mouth was only created, ledaber Divrei Torah, to speak words of Torah, ulelamed zechus al Yisrael, and to say good things about Klal Yisrael. That's why the mouth was created. That's why I have a mouth. It doesn't even say prayer. These 2 things. To say words of Torah and to say good things about Yidden. Now that's how it relates to the head. Va'yadayim, the hands, the hands speak about love. Yemina techabkeni. The hands, when I lift the hands to the head, means I'm raising my love and my fear, my emotional experiences of this worldliness, lifting them to Hashem. Right? That's lifting up my hands, my ava and yira, up to the higher level. V'araglayim, and the feet. Turn over the page. Miramzim al ha'emuna refer to truth, faith. Kisheker ein lo raglayim, right? Because we know the falsehood has no feet. Lefikach, therefore, kishadam yoshiv le'echol tzarich lahagbi anitzotzes kadei shelo yachila rak lanos gufay. Therefore, before a person eats, they wash netilas yadayim, they should raise their hands because that gets them into the consciousness of what their kavana, what their intention is supposed to be when they sit down to the meal. We actually spoke about this a few weeks ago when I mentioned the kavana also from the Berditchover. We learned it, I think we learned it inside of Hamaitzi Lechem Min Haaretz, which was to raise Lechem, which is 3 times Yud Kei Vav Kei, Min Haaretz, right? Is to extract the spirituality, the sparks of godliness from within the food, and by intentionally connecting to Hashem through the eating, through the gratitude and through the taste and the enjoyment, and to recognize this is all spirituality, I'm able to raise the sparks of holiness, lechem, min haaretz, right? And lift it out of the artzius, out of the physicality. This is something similar. Again, it's a meditation. Before a person sits to eat, you wash your hands. What do you do with your hands? What are your hands? This is my excitement about the food, my emotions, my love for the food, the pleasure. That's my hands. Before I eat, I'm raising them up. I'm eating for a higher reason. I'm channeling this excitement into my relationship with God. That's why the Beis Yosef writes, when a person washes their hands for Netilas Yadayim, they need to raise their hands to their head. I need to channel my excitement for the food. Again, a person can still be excited for the meal. Shabbos is coming, we're so happy. And a person's going to have a beautiful meal. Okay, that's fine. But bring Hashem into the picture. Grateful to you, Hashem. Hashem, I realize that that the tastes in the food I'm about to eat come from sparks of your godliness. That's why there's life in this food. That's why this food exists. I know that everything comes from you. Thank you so much, right? Etc. That's bringing Hashem into the picture. So let's finish off. I'm reading the Gemara. The Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah Yud Amud Beis, famous plukta Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua. There's a machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua with regard to when Klal Yisrael are going to be redeemed from Egypt, from Galus. Chad Amar ben Nisan Asidin Ligal. One man that Amar says that we will be redeemed like we were redeemed the first time in the month of Nisan. We will be redeemed from this final exile in the month of Nisan. Chad Amar b'Tishrei Asidin Ligal. And the other one says, no, we're going to be redeemed in Tishrei. What's the depth? Says the Berditchover Shalosh Tishrei, Lashon Tashrak. Tishrei, at least 3/4 of the word, Taf, Shin, Reish, is a reference to Tashrak. Tashrak is the last 4 letters of the Aleph Beis, but moving back toward Aleph, right? There's the Taf and the Shin and the Reish and the Kuf. So Tishrei is Taf, Shin, Reish, right? It's an energy of withholding. Aleph Beis Gimel Daled is free-flowing, right? It's a cascade of spiritual energy coming from the source, flowing downward. Taf, Shin, Reish, Kuf is an energy of Gevura. Tashrak humaram is al mishpat. Tashrak is speaking about din. The Aleph Beis humaram is al chasad v'rachmim. Aleph Beis is the opposite. It refers to kindness, chesed. The Nisan u'chaydesh ha'aviv. Nisan is called Aviv, which is Av Yud Beis, the first of the 12 months of the year, but it is Aleph Beis, right? It's the opposite of Tishrei. Tishrei is starting from the Taf, going backwards. Aviv, Chodesh Aviv, which is Nisan, the spring, is moving from Aleph downward. V'aviv hu Aleph Beis, Shomer Amaz Harachamim. And that's a time of mercy. Says the Berditchover Rav, with this we'll finish this segment. V'zeu plukta b'Gemara. This is the machlokes Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yeshua. Gam ken al derech zeh. Ta'inu sheman da amar b'Tishrei asidin ligael. The man da amar who says that we are going to get out of exile in the month of Tishrei. Koloimar afilu be'es hamishpat shetishrei merumaz ala mishpat afal pikin yiru'uyim ligael machma shekol Yisrael oivdim es habayre. He says, listen, Klal Yisrael are going to get out at a time of strict judgment. You know why? Because they'll be worthy. And that means that even according to Midas Hadin, Klal Yisrael will get out. And that's the only way. If Klal Yisrael are deserving, they'll get out. Al pi Midas Hadin, because they deserve to get out. That's called B'Tishrei Hasidin Yigal. Even though it's in an energy of Mishpat, they will have earned redemption. Understand, right? They will get out even though it's the Midas Hadin. But by implication, but the suggestion is that if we're not worthy, then we're not. But Umanda Amar Sheben Nisan Hasidin Ligael, the Manda Amar who says, no, the Geula is the energy of Nisan. Nisan is about mercy. Even if the Jewish nation at the end of time is on the lowliest of levels and does not deserve Alpin Mishpat to be redeemed. And even if we find ourselves as individuals stuck and far and confused and bewildered and estranged and distant and numb, On an individual level, Hashem, in His overwhelming and abundant mercy, will redeem them. This is why the genre of Torah in which the Sefer Kedushas Levi fits is called Chasidus. Because Chasidus was all about Hashem's chesed. It was all about Hashem's love. What a strange sentence. You don't find this sentiment in the Musar Sfarim. Generally, could be exceptions because, what do you mean? Like, we're not deserving, so we're not deserving. Like, so, you know. Chasidus is channeling an even higher madrega. Means there's an anhaga that comes forth even if we're not deserving. Hashem is so full of love. Ani l'daydi v'daydi li. Even when we're not deserving. Af al pikein. Even so, HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'roi v'rachma v'chasadav yig'alim. V'zeu kavana. So this is what Hashem was telling Klal Yisrael. Hayoim Ramay Shala'am. Hayoim atem yotzim b'chaydesh ha'aviv. I want to let you know, Klal Yisrael, and it's true for us every Pesach, and it's true for us every minute. You are being redeemed in the energy of Aviv, Aleph Beis. Dainu afilu she'ein ru'uyim atem l'geula, even though you're not ru'uy for redemption. Afal pikein, I want to let you know, says Moshe Rabbeinu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'rev chasadav yigal eschem. Hashem, in His abundant love for you, in His infatuation with you, in His tefillin bond of a focused, undivided attention relationship with you, is going to redeem you. Says the Berditchover, let Hashem display that mercy again, and I believe He's mamish displaying it as we speak. We're living in momentous times. Unbelievable times we're living through. Let Hashem redeem us b'karav afal pishein anuruim l'geula. Even though we're not worthy. But Hashem's chesed is not withheld based on our earning or not earning, our deserving or not deserving. That's why it's called chesed. It flows forth toward us regardless. And this is what we're davening, that we should see it. We're beginning to see it. We've already been seeing it. We should continue to see it. We should hear only B'suras Tovas, only good news. Be'ezras Hashem, Yisbarach. Ashreinu.
It's interesting. On top of everything you said, it's also interesting that Aleph Bet is that spring, which is the beginning of the process, the yearly process. Whereas Tishrei, which talked about Tashrak at the end, is the beginning of the winter, which is the ending process.
Right. I mean, I'm thinking about Chodesh Av, right, which is also Av. But on the contrary, that's the famous Torah. Right? How do you know that someone is a kid's father? Right? Somebody hugs a kid, you don't need to know it's the father. Everybody loves, it's a cute kid, pats him on the head. It's not you see somebody smack it, hopefully not smacking, but patch on the hand, that's the dad. Because nobody else is daring to, right? It's that, because that's the depth of the relationship, the closeness is sometimes when there's a patch. So the tzaddikim say that's why Chodesh Av is called Av, because it's in the month of Av where Hashem shows He's the only one who could give us a patch. He's our Av. Mashiach is born on Tisha B'Av, so there is an energy of Rachamim. Right, like the famous medrash, a very evocative medrash, that at the time that the Beis Hamikdash was crumbling, they looked back and they saw that the Kruvim were Me'urin Zeh B'Zeh, right? The Kruvim were hugging, embracing, at the core of the Churban. So there is an energy of Rachamim.
אני הבן ואתה האב שלי שכל כך אוהב אותי האב שלי מלך חי וקיים על כל נשימה שאני